final score, Wellington Phoenix 1, Wrexham 0. Shame to end up losing 2 games in our Down Under tour. But it's pre-season, and for me, I've got to be honest, difficult to get too concerned by it. It's all about fitness. It's all about looking at shape. And this was a very interesting exercise in doing exactly that, because Phil Barkson tried something a bit different, and it was interesting to see just how it panned out. A box midfield, that's a new one for him. Obviously, with a box midfield, keeping the back 3, but we had 2 holding midfielders in a double pivot, Tom O'Connor and Matty James, and then ahead of them, Elliot Lee on the left and Harry Ashfield on the right, who were looking to get up the pitch, support the strikers when we had the ball. And new systems need bedding in. Obviously, they'll be working on it on a training ground. There were elements that could improve, but it was an interesting experiment. Hardy up front sometimes was left a bit isolated. I certainly think if we're going to play with the box midfield, I think we have to build up a bit more through the thirds rather than look to hit him early, although his running in behind is good, and he made a couple of good runs which did give us an option to do that. But if he's not able to do that, or should I say if he's not doing that, I don't think going long to him is a wise move, because he was left a touch isolated in those situations. Maybe Sam Smith would suit that sort of style better. And I thought our wing backs were a little more conservative. I know we had a hell of a lot of service coming in from the right, but certainly maybe a bit lopsided in order to compensate. James McLean on the left, and then Seb Revan, or maybe to a lesser extent, because we beg your pardon, Seb Revan's irrelevant because we went back when we made our substitutions after the hour to the familiar 3-5-2. But yeah, McLean was more conservative than in the last 2 games when he was eye-catching. So interesting. We also looked less vulnerable on the transition of that extra holding midfielder O'Connor. There's some sterling work dropping back. So yeah, essentially against a Wellington Phoenix side that had a youthful look to it, we looked comfortably the better team. First half, they didn't really get at us very much, and that box midfield meant we were congesting the pitch in the central areas, so it was difficult to build up and create against us. They had a little bit of joy down the flanks, but weren't getting balls into the box, whereas we were asking questions from the start. 5th minute, Longman putting a long ball in over the top, looking for one of those hardy runs. It was overhit, but the goalkeeper, Aloekme, came out of the box and made a poor clearance, hitting it straight to Harry Ashfield in midfield. He took a touch, tried to shoot. It was an open goal from a long distance, admittedly. If he hits the target, he scores, but he pulled it wide. So frustrating for him. It's not an easy chance, but yeah, if you get the right contact and that, you've scored. We continue to put pressure on. Again, Longman was busy, as was Ashfield, who on the right-hand side in this role was linking up nicely. He fed Longman, who swept another good ball in. Hardy meeting it with a header just outside the 6-yard box, attacking in the near post, couldn't quite control his header and put it wide. Before again Hardy getting involved, this time Cleworth punching a good ball up to the edge of the area. This move, Wellington had got bodies back, but Hardy's beautiful little touch around the corner first time teed up Ashfield, who will have been disappointed, I think. Just cut inside, a heavy touch. If he hadn't have had a heavy touch, he would have had a clear sight of goal from 15 yards out. Halfway through the half, again, it's down the right. Cleworth driving the ball in behind the defence. Another good run in behind by Hardy. That's really the feature of his play that I think has struck me most from seeing him play in 2 of the friendlies. But the keeper this time did well to come out and just beat him to it. So Wrexham on top, certainly not looking troubled at the back and making half chances. Not with a huge regularity, but man, we looked in control. 35th minute, Lee got a free kick, driving forwards. He took it himself, pulled it just wide of the left post. A couple of minutes later, Longman and Ashfield combining really nicely in a tight area on the right corner of the box. Great feat by both of them. Firstly, Longman really holding off pressure with players all around him. Brilliant feat by him. And then his little nudge inside wasn't the easiest take for Ashfield, and his first touch with the outside of his right foot was beautiful. He tried then to feed it round the keeper with his left foot from the edge of the area, put it just wide. Good piece of work by a defender, lunging in. Meant maybe Ashfield just had to try and shape it around him, and that was why it went off target. But we kept going. Within a minute, another opportunity, this time us going long. McLean making a good run out to win into the box and doing well to control the header back for Lee, and Lee smashed it from the edge of the area. It was a beautiful, clean striker, and luckily for him, it was on target, but a defender standing in front of the keeper was able to block it. And this increase in intensity continued. Another minute later, 6 minutes later in the half, and McLean feeds the ball in, neat little header back to set up James by Longman, and James in the D with maybe a bit more time than he realised leaned backwards and thrashed his shot way over the bar. It was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, when the 3 minutes of the half left, Wellington carved out a half chance. It was a good move as well, really nice early diagonal, sent Loke, the right wing back, forwards, and he pulled it back into the edge of the area where the left-sided attacking player, Brooke Smith, tried to bring her into control, managed to hit it pretty firmly into his own face, and then as it dropped back down, hit a shot on the turn from about 15 yards out, central position, but couldn't control it, put it well over. And within a minute, we were back on the front foot. This time, it was a ball into the box by Lee. Ashfield getting up, glancing header 15 yards out, couldn't quite control it. It went wide. So Wrexham well on top at the break, without carving out maybe enough clear-cut chances. Wellington made more changes at half-time. This is just one of those things that makes a fool out of anyone trying to analyse a football match. They brought on a lot more young players. Immediately, you thought, okay, this is like the Melbourne Victory game. Their second half team's not as strong. And we had 4 minutes of us really looking dominant. We hadn't made changes. And you thought, okay, this is now turning into a mismatch. But goals change games. And 4 minutes into the half, Wellington got a bit of pressure on us and scored. It was, though, supremely avoidable. And whereas, like I say, it's only a pre-season game, still annoying to lose matches. And if this hadn't gone in, yeah, I mean, let's be honest, the performance itself was fine. We would have won it. Cross coming in from the left-hand side was Okonkwo's ball. It hit much too close to him, but he misjudged it and trickled out of his hands. Simple tap-in for Flowerdew, one of the players who just come on to score, and we found ourselves behind. We responded very well. In fact, there was a real storm for about 5 minutes as we put huge pressure on Wellington and just couldn't score it. It turned out to be, again, our right-hand side putting the ball in constantly, usually Longman, but not always. And then it was Elliot Lee who was finding acres of space after half-time between the lines and getting up in support of the strikers, who was coming in and really sort of having shot after shot. Firstly, it's Ashfield whipping a great ball in. Lee sprinting onto it, met it beautifully with his head. It cannons against the bar and comes flying back out. Almost instantly, Wrexham have it back and delivering the ball into the same sort of area once more. Longman this time delivering, this time Lee taking it on the chest, and as it bounces back up, trying to hook in a shot. It was not the easiest technique with defenders around him, and he pulls it wide. But we keep going. Longman again, pulling another cross in for Lee once more, just a little bit behind him this one, and Lee can't quite control his header, steers it wide at the far post. Within a minute again, Longman and Lee dropping off to the right for a change, combining nicely. Lee feeding Longman after a return pass, then going on and getting the return pass himself, round the back of the fence, right-hand side. He drives it in looking for Hardy, who, just like when he scored against Melbourne, has made a run to the near post. Defender gets a touch, though, which deflects it upwards. Hardy, and it's moving quickly, has got, a yard and a half to react. He does pretty well to sort of try and manufacture a header, but he has no chance of having any control over it. And from close range, it goes wide. And we continue. Brunt nearly gets a bizarre goal, one of those surges forwards which he has. He overruns it slightly, but the centre-back Gardner tries to thrash it clear, thrashes it against Brunt, who's standing just outside the box, and it comes off him with such speed, straight on target, but luckily for Wellington, straight at the keeper. It's one-way traffic from this point onwards. Wrexham continuing to push on. An overload on the right-hand side once more, something this box midfielder's brought us, allows Longman again to pull it in again for Lee. And once more he tries one of those set and then hooked volleys. Good save this time to his right to push the ball away. And instantly there are more changes. Off comes that keeper. Wrexham make 8 changes. And I just need to emphasise here again, for anybody concerned about the scoreline, the way Longman is playing, the way Lee is playing, and they are constantly creating and then getting on the end of chances. You don't bring them off in a competitive game at this point, because that goal was coming. But there's a bigger picture. We need to get the minutes into players. Clearly, just like last time, it's a 60-second minute. It's a pre-planned thing. And we make wholesale changes, and they are 2 of the players who come off. We go, as I said earlier, to 2 at front again, a more familiar look at Palmer and Farl. Good to see Farl back on the pitch up front. And we immediately have a really, really nice move where Brunt punches a ball into the feet of Farl in the centre circle. He's got a man on him. Delightful little touch around the corner by him, a little flick, finds Lee, who carries it forwards again in space between the lines, driving through the middle. It's a 3-on-2 break. He feeds it left to Palmer. Barnett is completely unmarked on the right, and Lee is, I assume, thinking we can switch it over that Palmer can, and I'm pretty sure that's what Palmer looks to do. He punches an early ball hard across the face of the box, but Lee takes it. I don't think it's aimed for Lee. I think he's looking to find Barnett so he can play the killer ball in for Lee. But Lee takes it, drives into the box with defenders around him and is well tackled. Because it's not intended for Lee, for me, I don't it doesn't drop perfectly for Lee. And he does well, really, to take it in his stride. If it was meant for Lee and was played with the right weight and accuracy for him, then yeah, I think Lee may well have scored. But yeah, I think the idea wasn't the idea in Palmer's mind, but Lee took it anyway. We start to just lose a little bit of momentum. Balls are coming in again from the right constantly. Farl is getting on the end of it rather than Palmer. And in the next 10-15 minutes or so, the only real chance we have is when Barnett, who's very involved, sweeps the ball in. Farl can't get a proper contact on it and heads it wide from about 8 yards out. We make our final changes. So we've got a completely rotated team. Barnett punching the ball down the line to Dobson, who whips it in. Farl again with a decent chance just outside the 6-yard box. Doesn't make good contact with his head, though. And lacking power, it's a comfortable take more than a save, really. And as we go into the last 10 minutes, we don't really get the momentum going, in all honesty. We're still well on top, but we're not creating chances. Moore has come on up front, and he has a sort of half chance. Aaron James punching the ball into the box. Moore does well to find space. He's replaced Lee and finds similar space in a similar part of the pitch, but miscontrols, and the ball gets away from him. And then with 4 minutes left, Barnett, cutting inside, has a hopeful shot from the edge of the box on his weaker left foot and can't keep it down. And that's that. And, well, we've lost. Okay. It's no big disaster, let's be honest. There's more players coming in as well to add to this squad. And the key thing is, what state do we come out of this tour in? Well, the players have had minutes in their legs. That's clearly good. They've worked on a couple of different tweaks of the system. We've seen a few interesting little combinations. Ashfield, I think, has come out of this pre-season well. Looking at the performances, Okonkwo will be so disappointed with that goal he's conceded, of course. Central defenders, didn't have that much defending to do, in all honesty. Brunt was looking adventurous when he was driving forwards, as he so often does. On the wings, Barnett and Longman both were very impressive, very involved, and put a lot of good calls into the penalty area. Wrexham will be frustrated not to have capitalised upon that. The double pivot worked all right. O'Connor made some good cover. Like I said, he's useful covering transitions in that role, made a couple of good tackles when they broke on us as well, and used the ball well in general. Lee was very busy in his last half hour, maybe a bit more on the pitch, and he'll be frustrated not to have scored, but he put some good efforts in, to be fair. Hardy, like I said, I don't think he's a back to goal scrap for the ball in the air striker on his own, but when we were playing to his strengths, feeding it in for his runs down the channels, driving balls in across the box, he looked sharp and dangerous, and you could see how he could score goals at championship level. So overall, it was interesting. I guess the wing backs, the left hand side particularly, McLean was much more conservative in his positioning and in the way we used him when we played at the box midfield. So that was quite interesting, and as a result, he didn't have quite the influence he had in the first two games. But overall, yeah. Judge the tour on how we start the season, in all honesty. A defeat, but most certainly not a harmful one. With a final score of Wellington Phoenix 1, Wrexham 0. I'm Mark Griffiths from Wrexham AFC.